Welcome to Meeting the Inconceivable, a podcast exploring Zen koans, dreams, and the creative life produced by Pacific Zen Institute. Pacific Zen has a legacy of preserving and reimagining the koan tradition to meet our own times. With a lively community of artists, innovators, and seekers of all kinds that extends worldwide, our mission is to create a culture of transformation through meditation, koans, the arts, and conversations about the deepest matters. In this episode, Roshi John Tarrant offers a Dharma talk on a koan from the Blue Cliff Record, in which Yunyan asks Daowu, how does the Bodhisattva of great mercy use all those hands and eyes? It's like reaching behind you for a pillow in the night, says Daowu. I understand, says Yunyan. What do you understand? All over the body are hands and eyes. That's very well expressed, says Daowu, but it doesn't say it all. What would you say, older brother? I'd say all through the body are hands and eyes. In this talk, Tarrant speaks of koan practice as a practice of intimacy, of learning to move in the dark, and of the secret kindnesses of the world that become more and more apparent as the guards of the mind start to relax. All living things are one seamless body. All through the body are hands and eyes.
We've been working with these little stories that we call koans, which open the heart and the mind. And the old teachers said they open reality. And they, in a certain sense, they open you without consulting you necessarily. But you just keep company with them, and they shift how you move in the world. And the reason they don't consult you is because in a lot of ways, what we do when we come to the teachings, we say, I want to change everything except my delusions. and I want you as my friends in the Dharma to help me keep those delusions, And in fact, I'll recruit you for them. And I want the teacher to take everything else away, but except my delusions. And so the koans sort of say, they don't care about that, so it doesn't matter. So, in a certain sense, with a koan, you're moving in the dark because the delusion has already colonized the areas that are light, that are bright, right? Daylight has been colonized, so you end up moving around in the darkness, and then you find out that's grand, So and in that area of darkness, there's a feeling of warmth and nearness and intimacy, and so intimacy became known as, it was a synonym for waking up, for enlightenment. She became intimate with what? With herself, with the universe, all of that, with the teachings. And, and it's such a marvelous thing. It was said that, if you wake up in the morning, you'll feel fine if you die in the evening, because your whole of life has been worth it for that waking up. And I've been looking at the kinds of, the koans have always also been categorized into kinds to some degree. And so, some of the kinds are sort of silly, like, koans that are hard for me to get through, or koans that wake me up in the middle of the night or something. But some of them, the categories make koans for opening the gates of reality. So what is your, quickly without thinking good or evil, what is your original face before your parents were born? That would be an example. Or one of them from the Book of Serenity is there's a true person, a true woman, a true man of no rank. Who is that true man, true woman of no rank? Yeah. So they're koans that you can tell they go into how you see the world and what you think you are, really. You know, what's your original face before your parents were born is probably not your usual ideas about yourself. You know? So they're koans, the inquiry koans that are shared by many traditions, like, what is this? What am I? Think of a question, that's an inquiry koan. A friend of mine took an entrance exam long ago at Cambridge University, and there was a 4-hour exam, written exam, and there was one question which was, is this a good question? So very British too. But you know, it's getting there. You know, what is this? What am I? Who am I? You know, and you can tell those kind of questions, they stop you at the wondering. They stop you because no answer is as interesting as the question. And maybe you say that no answer is as interesting as this question. Is this is a big question? Put down your pen. You could leave. You'll at least be displaying confidence. So there are categories like that. There are koans of stories of enlightenment. You had one yesterday about Lin Ji getting enlightened. And there are other koans that I think of as koans of intimacy, koans of relatedness, yeah, and it's compassion. And it's all the feeling life, you know, because we tend to come to a spiritual practice to get away from what we're feeling and thinking, you know. And then there's the koan that goes, one of the most ancient koans. The great Indian Zen master came to China, was asked, you know, what is Buddha? And he said, your thoughts and feelings. Wait, I was trying to get away from that stuff. You know? So I think there's a category really of koans about, what happens is the heart changes. You know, and so the barrier between me and you, between me and the world, between the forest and the animals and the sky and myself is not so thick. You know, I'm not outside of that. So, and then you're inside the mystery. So tonight I'm going to explore a koan of intimacy, and it's from the Book of Serenity, and it goes like this. A couple of friends were talking about the Dharma, and one of them said, how does the Bodhisattva of great compassion, how does the Bodhisattva of great mercy, of love, how does she use all those hands and eyes? You know, each hand has an eye in it, you know. According to some accounts, she has 84,000 arms. Sometimes you'll see the short version, which is 8, the cut to the chase version. How does the great goddess of compassion, how does the Bodhisattva of compassion use all those hands and eyes? And the other friend, Daowu, was his friend's name, said, it's like reaching behind you for a pillow in the night. I understand. What do you understand? All over the body, there are hands and eyes. And then, so, well, I think that's really great, but, you know, I think it's only 80% of how I would say it. Yeah. How would you say it, my friend? All through the body are hands and eyes. So the first point, before we get to the body and whether it's all over, on top of, or inside, or through, or whatever, I think how does she use all those hands and eyes? You know, you can't think about each of your 84,000 hands. You know, it'd be worse than being a giant squid. And it's like reaching behind you for a pillow in the night. There's something really deep about practice there, because it says it's going into the darkness. And in other words, you don't go with a theory, you don't go with a plan, you just reach in the night. it's an image of action as this sort of thing that comes out of the universe, really, or through you, inhabits you, and in a way wakes you up, But you are part of the universe doing something with another part of the universe. There was a guy, a really interesting guy, who had a kind of awakening experience through losing his eyesight when he was a kid, and he ran around the corner, banged into something, and destroyed his optic nerve, and became blind. And he lived in Paris, and his name was Jacques Lucélan. And he had great parents. His father just took him to opera almost, or music almost every night. Paid special attention because he'd lost his sight, so he looked after him in this way. And he noticed that he started to listen to the world very acutely, this child did. And as he grew, he became able to read people's hearts. And he noticed that he could even ride a bicycle, and he had developed something called blind sight you can see when you don't have eyes sometimes, where you have a feeling for objects and so on. You get into the field of it. And he developed that, and he said, as long as, if I was angry, I'd immediately fall off the bicycle or ride into a tree. If I was emotionally upset, But as long as my mind was free, I could just ride along bicycle paths in the country, and I would be safe. And so that's something like reaching behind you for the pillow in the night. There's no disturbance there. There's nothing like that. And his story was great because he put that to kind of good use. He knew that this was in the late 1930s, and somehow it became obvious that war was coming. And so he was 16, and he thought he'd probably die in the war. And so he decided he'd never held a girl, so he took dancing lessons. And he never had a girl in his arms. So at 16, he went to a beautiful studio, took dancing lessons. And then Paris was invaded, and he became an interviewer for the resistance because you couldn't lie to him. He could hear you when you were lying to. And so they'd say, oh, you want to join the resistance? We'll take you to see the blind man, this 16, 17-year-old kid. So there's something like that, reaching behind you with a pillow in the night. He was eventually betrayed and captured, and went to one of the prison camps, and Auschwitz, I think. But he survived because everyone looked after him, and some touching story. And then he wrote this book after the war. So reaching behind you for a pillow. And so you might want to think about, the movements you make into the dark, that we don't like heading into the dark, but, in a way, it's our friend. Because it's not already known territory. And what you already know, if you get what you're wanting, the problem with that is you get what you're wanting, and what you wanted was not... What you really want is the universe. And instead of that, you get, nice car or whatever. And it's not going to really help, I mean, in a small way it helps. But, and so I'd like you to think for a second of so you can think of dark, but all kinds of darkness are real, And so that we have certain darkness in our lives, in our karma, in our history, we're afraid of. But if you haven't had that experience, you haven't been paying attention. So think for a minute of what would be a darkness in your life, a difficulty in your life, or something that is hard to go towards. If you just think for a second, consider, and then I don't know if you can just reach into it and feel it with your heart. Just try that, Then that's like Guanyin coming into it. And whatever you're ashamed of or whatever you're hurt by, well, how might that also be intimate? How might that be? Open your heart. How might that be? What might be the advantages of that for you, in you? Do you notice anything? Not actually, I was meditating. Did you notice anything? Anybody got anything to say about that?
Seems kinder, friendlier, just benign.
So there's a lot of things we do. One of the things you'll notice you do is explain yourself. Must be, if you're human, you probably do this. Otherwise, you're probably something else. We can talk to you. You can see me later. But you know how you explain yourself, and then when you talk to a friend, you recruit the friend to your explanation of you, which is exactly what we do when that's called. I'll change everything except my delusion. In fact, I want you. You do not love me unless you're on the side of my delusion. So then it becomes a really interesting question of what is love. If I'm demanding that you join my delusion, so that I will feel loved, I'm kind of doomed. I'm never going to feel loved, right? Because you can pretend you do, but in your heart, I'm deluded, so you won't. You might love me, but I won't feel that because, you're being recruited, and it sort of tastes. It's a transaction. It's not really a gift. And so if I love you, then I kind of want you to want what you want, rather than to confirm my delusion. So it might be hard sometimes because I'd really like you to want what I want you to want. Which usually involves me in some way. But it's kind of really interesting, very freeing to think, well, I want you to want what you want, and then there's this whole clinging and urgency and coercion and force taken out of the equation. Reaching behind you for a pillow in the night, like that. And so suddenly you realize, the goddess of great compassion is here. She's here all the time. Yeah. She's never anywhere else but here. And so all over the body. And so, well, I understand. Well, what the nice thing is, one of them says, "Oh, I get it," and the other one says, "Good." Doesn't say good. They say, "Well, what do you get?" So, in a way, there's a modesty and a curiosity and a wonder going on where people explain to you. It's kind of nice. Nice. Well, all over the body. And the body is, what's the body? It's your body. It's the world. The red words, all the people in the room. Hands and eyes of the great bodhisattva of compassion. Guanyin. Avalokiteshvara. Sanskrit name. And the other friend says, well, I don't know. I think that's only 80%. I'd say it differently. Like, are you sure? And it says all through the body, throughout the body, all through the body. Every atom in the universe, hands and eyes. And so you can say that's a way that compassion comes in very close in, like, you can reach in the dark and it will befriend you in the darkest things. You might have kindness come into the dark bits of your life. And if you try to keep the dark bits of your life out of it, you're not being kind to your life. So there's that. And if you try to keep the dark bits of those you love out of your transactions with them, well, good luck with that. And but also it's just like, in a way, can we see that with a child? Child throws a tantrum, you don't not love them. But it's the same with everyone there. And we see with the tree. I don't know if the tree's behaving well or not, but I can just blow it straight up, Easier to love trees in that way. We're less judgmental about trees. but it goes for humans. And so throughout the body, and so, so if you look at your life, there's all hands and eyes all through your life, hands and eyes. So find a place that's not a hand and eye of the bodhisattva of compassion. There's another koan that goes, he says, talking about medicine, which is medicine for delusion. The two friends are, what the other friend says, well, find me something that's not medicine. And you can imagine someone going all over the world to find something that's not a hand and eye of Avalokiteshvara. So, and also, your own, it's a literal thing too, your own hands and eyes, if you look at your hand, it's inconceivable, your hand. You couldn't make it up. You can't make this shit up. It's like, look what it does, It's sort of right, hold it up. Like, it does that. What about the other one does the same thing? It's in both of them. It's amazing. It's sort of gorgeous. Yeah. And so, So it's also that in your eyes. If you look at somebody, you can see it in their face, Even if you look at their feet, look at somebody's feet, you see it. Or your feet, even your feet have it, It's grand. So fortunately, we have Avalokiteshvara with us all the time. And one way the old teachers saw this was as a great net, a chain, sort of like chainmail, but with jewels, strings and strings of radiant jewels, and each jewel contains the reflection of every other jewel. And you just don't know where you are in the jewel net, like the and each time you look at somebody, they're a jewel. But then you realize, they're holding all the other jewels in the universe. Your heart is holding all the hearts in the universe. And, if you really think about the notion of the universe and how vast the vastness, and so if you think you know where you are in the universe, you're misunderstanding. It's a radical misunderstanding the nature of where and you and are. Otherwise, it's pretty good. One of the great myths about Avalokiteshvara, one of the Chinese myths, was she was reincarnated as this young woman who got into a conflict about she was supposed to marry someone, and it's a fairy tale thing. Supposed to marry someone, her father wanted her to marry, and she didn't, and so she went to hell. And but she was a bodhisattva of great compassion, and then flowers started to appear in hell, and leaves came onto the stark trees that had never had a leaf, and the demons came and got a delegation and said, probably we're getting happy and people want to come here. You're just ruining our reputation. So would you mind leaving? We love having it, but we're not fulfilling our duty as demons. And so she floated up, but all the souls in hell clung to her skirts as she rose and picked them up. So just remember next time you're in hell. One of these teachers was with, one of the great teachers was with the fox guy, Baizhang's of the fox notion, Yunyan and Daowu. And Yunyan was with Baizhang for 20 years. And he felt like he got something, but he didn't really get it. He didn't really feel like he had it. So 20 years with one of the greatest masters of all time. And then he went to somebody else, another good teacher, and then he understood. And so there's something about the patience of letting your karma develop and letting the way develop. There's compassion in time can have compassion in it. We often think of time as being our enemy, but it might be our friend. So for him, time was his friend. And the other one, Daowu, the guy who said, well, that's pretty good, it's only 80%, it's actually all through the body of Hamsters, not all over the surface of the universe, it's all through the universe. And then there's another famous koan of his. Koan he was involved with where he went with one of his students to pay condolence call, and there's a coffin and the body, and everybody's weeping. And the student just is completely upset by death and everything. Hits the coffin with his stick and says, "Is it alive or dead? Alive or dead?" And Daowu says, I won't say. And then they're coming home after the funeral. They left it there, but they're coming home after the funeral. And the student stops him on the path and says, You must tell me about this mystery. You must tell me. You must explain it to me, alive or dead." And he says, I won't say. He said, "You must tell me, teacher, otherwise I'll hit you." And he said, "You can hit me, but I won't say." And so the student actually hits him and he's bleeding and everything. And then he says, "It's probably good if you leave because I won't manage it. The head of the temple won't treat you very well if you come back like this. So, why don't you go to this," and sends him off somewhere else. And then later on, he comes to a teacher called Shi Shuang, who is another notable person. And this is talking about in the dark and how we can't see things. And so one of Shi Shuang's students says, "Shi Shuang, why is it that you are so near, yet I can't see your face?" So if we really know someone, we can't explain it. We really love someone. Our explanations are kind of not that useful, are they? It's like, and why is it you're so near, yet I can't see your face? And Shi Shuang said, the whole world is not hidden. And so then somebody else went, then that person said, but decided to go and asked him, got a second opinion. And from Shui Feng, who's the guy who got enlightened in snowstorm toward this mountain. And that's Shui Feng. What does that mean? The whole world is not concealed. And Shui Feng said, Shi Shuang is everywhere. So you can tell it's the same Dharma. It's like, throughout the body, hands and arms, your heart is everywhere. We might say your shining is everywhere. And everything else. Yeah, so we might want to say that, when we're really in a hard place and it's really difficult, we're not yet reaching into the darkness. We're demanding light. And I think that's an innocent thing and even a noble thing. And in the great tradition of the koans and some of the tantric traditions too, delusion leads directly to enlightenment. So if you're lost, become more lost. And then you start to Guanyin will appear in hell to pluck you out. So, comments, questions? Yeah.
You mentioned koans of inquiry.
Yeah.
Can you explain how would you use it?
Who is asking this question?
Pure awareness.
No, but keep trying. Yeah, just ask yourself the question: who is asking? Who is talking? Who is walking? Who is looking for his Buddha nature? Yeah. And the inquiry koan, I'll probably talk about them again, but they became used as a kind of shorthand thing for travelers, like a traveling kit for koans. And the idea with koans is you do not have to be sitting down. You do not have to be concentrating. Nothing is required because all that's in the world of knowing. It's not like the darkness. And all the virtuous things you do, that's nice, and they might help, but they're not really it yet. And so because it's not a transaction, I'll sit really still and then Guanyin will come along and enlighten me. That's bargaining. It's not yet freedom. So, and really, so the inquiry koans go, who wants to be enlightened? Who's walking? Who's falling asleep? Who's waking up in the middle of the night? And all you have to do, you don't need a concentration state because it's before concentration or inattention. It's before good and evil. The original face is before that, before the universe was formed. And so then the great the people around the time this book was finally compiled felt they needed like really short forms of koans for people to carry with them. And so they said, well, whatever you're doing, just ask yourself who's meditating, who's walking, who's cooking, who's in despair, who's losing his temper, who thinks his lover is not doing what she should do or he should do. But, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's a profound thing, and you realize that the question somehow opens something. And if you answer it quickly, it closes it again. So you keep the question open until the whole universe answers it.
But I never thought of like doing it for every activity, and I can see how it can be valuable, because it's easy to ask just who am I, but if you get into a situation where you're lost and an activity or something, you can ask the question on the activity. That's
in fact, it's just there. It's an attitude of wonder, interest in life. Who is silent? Who's feeling silence? Feeling the time, feeling the magnificence of being here. Feeling what here is.
To support these episodes or learn more about upcoming programs and retreats at Pacific Zen Institute, visit us at pacificzen.org. You'll find details on John Tarrant's Sunday talks, our Open Temple morning meditation, and our Zen Luminary series featuring intimate conversations with scholars, poets, and teachers of koan Zen. Thanks for listening.